We're reporting. It's on. That's right. Yeah.
Good morning. We will call our meeting to order.
Mr. Allen.
Here.
Mr. Bitter. Here. Mr. Comer.
Here.
Dr. Stephen. Here. Mrs. Weiss. Here.
Please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Need a motion to approve the agenda. And then we have Marcy,
So moved. Second. Weiss.
Aye.
Dr. Stephen. Aye. Mr. Allen.
Aye.
Mr. Bitter. Aye. Mr. Comer.
I need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any questions or comments? Mrs. Weber, please call the roll.
Mrs. Weiss. Aye. Dr. Stephen. Aye. Mrs. Bitter. Aye. Mr. Comer.
Aye.
Mr. Allen.
Staying. That's not a meeting. I need a motion to approve the employment of our new treasurer.
So moved. Second.
The board is very excited to welcome Mrs. Logan to Sycamore as our next treasurer. We conducted an extensive search over the last few months and are very excited that Jenny is joining us. She comes to us with a lot of experience as treasurer in a couple of different districts. And we're just very excited to have her experience, her leadership, and professionalism joining us. Not that she's replacing Mrs. Weber, because that's impossible. But bringing Jenny's experience to Sycamore, I'm sure into a smooth transition. Welcome to our.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any additional comments from the board?
Welcome to the team. Thank you. Welcome to Sycamore. Looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
I'm really excited to have you join the Sycamore family. I'm really looking forward to work.
And thank you again for stepping into the role. Looking forward to it.
I will say just from my standpoint, losing someone that's been so close to me and I've worked with her for 11 years and I've received so much mentorship and guidance that I was very nervous about having a brand new treasurer with maybe lacking experience. So I would say I'm very excited to work with someone that has experience and learn more from two of the best in the state of Ohio. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, so I know we had the flying pig this weekend, right? We were just talking about that marathon and Beth, I don't know if you remember, it's been more than 15 years ago, but we were on a relay and you handed me, I ran after you and you handed me like a baton. And so I feel like we're getting ready to experience that again. And I look forward to continuing the excellent financial leadership that you so deserve in this district. And I know Beth is only a phone call away if I have questions. The great team that you have assembled here, I am so excited to join this team, to be part of a community that supports its schools. I'm just really looking forward to it. And I had some time to meet Amy. And so the team, I'm just really excited and energized to get started. So thank you for the opportunity. Mrs. White. Aye. Mrs. Bitter. Aye. Mr. Comer.
Aye.
Dr. Stephen. Aye. And Mr.
Aye.
Thank you.
We're not done. I don't know if you were planning on sticking around.
I actually do want to listen to the application.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll turn it over to Mr. Woods. We will. And this is Mr. Lovell, for an update on always.
It's amazing when the technology director's not here, nothing works. We did record it. We did get that part done. See, we had a nice picture of Denny. We got that.
It has been a few years. Need to update.
Maybe she's not real upset that we didn't get that slide.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to, and myself and Mr. Lovell and Mrs. Weber are, you know, I think we always want to have a discussion with you, an update on where we are, you know, what we're proposing, and certainly just hear your feedback and concerns and dialogue about this topic, because we all know the amount of work and discussion that has gone into this project. And so, I will let Mr. Lovell just quickly give you, I'll say the overview from what you see on the screen, and then, you know, Mrs. Weber and I will chime in. On that.
Yeah, so what we want to do is just give you an overview of kind of where we stand with the field house, locker rooms, whatever we want to call them. So over here, we just got the kind of wide view, just for a refresher for the community and yourselves that everything at Green Line is kind of what we deem as phase one of the overall stadium project. So phase two would be looking at the field houses, and there's phase one of the field house, which is what we'll talk about here. And you can see it sitting there on the north side, right there, by the new existing concession and restroom building. This is that's a visual. This is a visual of what that field house will look like. And so probably the most important aspect of this to understand is that we wanted the building to match the existing buildings out there, concessionary and things like that. And so being able to source the block is most critical at this point. So if you were to ask me, what do we do for securing funds to get that block, to be able to get that to match long term. You can see there also, we'll talk about this here shortly, on the corner of the building there is where that family restroom will be. So we took the advice of the board and kind of that feedback, and when we looked at the design, we went to our architectural firm and said, how might we fit that in there? And it's actually the most logical space because that's where we had some storage area. Plus, it would be right there in front of the concession area. So from an operational standpoint, it just makes sense to put it on the corner there.
And I think it's important to point out, Mr. Lovell did an exhaustive job of really cornering our architects and engineers. So everything that you see in this picture
Is what it will look like.
is what we can purchase.
Yes.
With the funds that we believe that we have. Committed to.
And I will say to that, well, so
Including landscaping, but I think
We're gonna take
Lovell and
over.
I are gonna make. There are multiple ways. Trees make a map when it comes to stadiums and concrete and areas like that. Two, architects sometimes don't think things like, when Mr. Lovell, when he showed me the picture, I said, you know, it's not really the best idea to put roofs next to a building underneath concrete next to a restaurant. Yeah. So they don't make those things like, I'm sure it looks great on there, but I'm like, I don't want to. Get them out of there. We can put trees behind the building, on the other side of the building. You got plenty of trees on the top.
And I do appreciate that because, you know, we have ran into perception problems in the community with putting really nice drawings out there, and that the expectation is that all of this is included and it's going to look just like this. If it doesn't, there's concerns. So I
Exactly.
do appreciate making sure the drawings.
Well, can we be clear though that the drawing of a field house, there's nothing inside of it?
Correct. Yeah, well, I'll show you a little bit about what that means.
But it's also critically important to point out the concrete that you see. Purpose of that.
Yeah, correct.
That's expensive stuff.
Okay, so this is the overall kind of footprint of what the home field house will be. The green and the interior scope to Mrs. White's point is that is the phase two, that's the build out. So the only thing that would actually, pending board approval, be put into this would be that restroom in the corner. Everything else, I was talking to Mrs. Weber, I said, the best way to visualize this would be an unfinished basement. It's going to be concrete floor, there won't be paint on the walls. It will have ceiling, but it won't have the drop ceiling, it'll have temporary lighting, those types of things. And I'll talk on the next slide a little bit about that, but I do want to point here, that red line there. One of the desires, obviously, of the shell is to be able to leverage it for both a home and a visitor field house for the temporary, right? So that our opposing team has somewhere that they can go. And so the idea would be that we would put a wall, kind of a temporary wall down that area. And then that back door in the upper corner is where the visitor team would kind of enter and exit. And then the door down there, the affluent entry, is where the home team would come in and out. All right, so the projected cost, phase one, and I just want to make sure that we're on the same page here. This is the hard cost. So this is outside of the design fee that have been paid, the soft costs associated with it. And if you remember, the soft costs were actually based on phase one only, not the total scope. So we're looking at right around $560,000. That includes, again, the structure of insulated walls and the roofing. There was a value engineering option to go to an 8-inch brick instead of a 12-inch brick, which you basically get rid of the insulation. The problem with that is that it would not be an all-season space, which I don't think that that's what we desire long-term for ultimate flexibility. It will have baseboard heaters in it, not an HVAC system. That's in phase two. We'll be able to get the building to 55 degrees. So on those cold fall nights, I just want to make sure I temper the expectations that it's not going to feel 70 degrees in that space. But it also will keep our pipes from freezing and things like that that have been run. The ACE branding will be included on it. And again, as I mentioned, there'll be temporary lighting in there as well. Phase one alternate. So part of the $560,000 does not include that wall between the spaces, because that was not an original conversation we had. I guess there's two options there. You put the wall in and allow the visitors come in, or you tell the visitors they'll huddle behind the bleachers. And that's a decision we have to make. And it also did not include the hot water heater. And the reason that was an alternate is because the restroom, because it was a late add on it, it wasn't in the original spec of the estimate. And so we could have the restroom open without hot water and not add the heater, or just go ahead and add the heater now so there's hot water in that restroom. Correct. That's the reason the cost is more higher, is we would buy the one that would be needed for the full facility. Won't go out phase two.
One quick question, is there anything to a restaurant facility on temporary wall in space?
No, so this building would have no restrooms included in it for phase one. We would still be renting porta johns for the events. We probably put them on the side of the building for both the home and the.
We have a family restroom that's a porta john, like that, something on wheels that is, that is. You do that, and I'm sure that.
I don't know. I would have to check into that. I haven't researched that. All right, so the family restroom, this is the estimate that I received from HDC, so I thought I would just put it up there so you can kind of understand. You're looking at about an $18,000, $19,000 cost associated with building that on the corner there. I think that overall, we all know that that's most likely something we need out on the facility. It was a miss with the concession stand, but I did want to put that to you because that would be as an alternate in addition to the house putting that in there. But it has been designed as a part of it. So there's 50% drawings that were purchased, include that in there. And then the next slide, I just think it's important to note from a timeline standpoint on this. The first game is August 18th. To be open on the 18th, we would not have the restroom, the family restroom complete. As you can imagine, there's significant more permitting that would be required and things that would have to be done with that piece of open. If we said we want the entire building open with the restroom open, we're looking at an 8/26 completion. That allows us for 1 day a week of break between now and the opening on a page. We could also get an alternate, which I would price of what the design work would be, speed the process up. But if we're okay with the film house opening with a later arrival of the restroom, then we could fit that heating team more to be able to use the show.
I do. More accessible.
Yeah, I know that restroom.
We're already
If we
renting,
did-
we're already renting portalets just for general use
Yeah.
there. So I would like to see us cost out what it would be to rent a portalet family type out. in a situation. We just have to be able to accommodate. Just
They're not really.
So the calls on, we've got a good relationship.
Mr. Lovell, can you talk a little bit about? Well, actually, let me let you finish. Because I know. Before you do, it's in restroom with the plural. That's not restroom. Right?
It's one. Thank you for that. The one thing I do want to mention on this is that, as a side note to the funding and the cost, the hard cost, the soft cost, all of that, there is also a cost to not having it operationally every year. Based on the cost structure that we leveraged for 2 games last year to do the entire season, we're looking at around $58,000 to replicate what we did last year in regards to bringing in 2 tents on the restrooms. That $58,000 does include the restroom, so you have to take that out. And so for me, obviously we'll build that into the operations budget, but as you all think about and plan for what do we do here, just know that there is cash that will be going out in regards to operating if we say that we need tents for operating.
Can we start having the conversation for the folks? Can we talk though a little bit about, some of the, I don't want to say promises or what we went out for expectations of raising the $500,000, which I think it was originally quoted at. We discussed that was going to be fundraised in its entirety by April 30th. And I don't believe that we've come even close to that number. Is that accurate? We're not talking about this letter yet from the Sycamore boosters, but just
Yeah,
How
you're
much-
not considering.
how much did we raise without the booster commitment, 10-year commitment piece?
I do have an update from Mr. Harden. His fundraising efforts brought in about $5,000 in budgets.
So considerably short of where we wanted to be. Correct?
Mr. Lovell, do we have an estimate, because part of my concern is, again, having the customer, the community's expectations, delivering something short of expectations. So they're going to see this nice building and then they're going to be here with nothing. And we have openly struggled, if I was an aviator outside of 5 or 6 very significant donations from individual family boosters. Any idea what the total cost, to finish this would be? Because my concern is it has the potential to sit for a shelf for many years.
So I really worked hard to try and get that number because I assumed that would be a question we would be asked today. It's not as simple as just because what we did was we originally got 2 estimates. We got the light shell estimate, which is what you have in front of you, and then we got the full build out. It's not as simple as just subtracting one from the other, right? Because there are shared costs in construction and things like that. I tried to get that number, I couldn't get it. So I did ask our architects to give just kind of what they felt like the estimated number is, and they felt like it would be close to 50 to 55. This cost is about 50 to 55% of the total cost. And so again, what's so expensive in that second build out? We're talking about purchasing blockers, equipment, like from the standpoint of restrooms, things like that. So it's the finishings, which we all know when we build, the finishings are what really makes costs go up in the project.
So we're looking at $1,000.
Correct. Yes.
This is what,
Could I ask a question?
or she,
Is the
Mr. Comfort.
bigger picture is this has the appearance of being focused on the field house. for the primary benefit of the football games that we have on Friday night and Saturday morning. The question I have is, there's been a lot of noise in the community about the use of the field, and is it truly a multi-purpose field? I know that came up in one of our previous board meetings. There had been discussion, would this field be leveraged for other sports other than football and for the marching band? I just want to make sure, because this will be somewhat polarizing. If the boosters has a full support of this, but it's for one of the many sports that we have, I just want to make sure I understand, are there also plans to make sure that the field could be used by other athletic teams?
My understanding of my conversation with the athletics department is that absolutely they want to leverage this facility and that entire complex for multi-sports, multi-access.
When you say complex,
From the field to the stands, to the concession, to the field house, every component of it.
okay, it's not just the other fields that we have on campus. The other fields that people are using. Some of the time read about or heard about is that people are worried that a lot of sports are going to be people.
So yeah, a couple board meetings ago, I gave kind of a bigger plan of the facility out there and how things were leveraged. We will be replacing the turf at the current the soccer field, and that was originally designed to be the soccer lacrosse stadium, because remember, we invested money in redoing the Gregory Center locker rooms to really be equipped for lacrosse and soccer. So the idea is that while absolutely they could be out on the field, over on the new field, they will have a space that's actually super close to concession and locker rooms. The striping that we put on that new field is multi-use, it's multi-purpose. Yes, it'll be striped for football, it is striped for football. But we I know baseball's out there right now leveraging the turf. Band has been out there, so there are other entities that are using this space.
And my specific question, maybe around, not to be too specific, lacrosse, because it shares that stadium near the Gregory Center with the track team in spring, across in the spring. And track takes priority with the numbers and the size and after school.
And it has the track.
And just having the field line for lacrosse and having the ability to put the goals in there, I mean, just gives flexibility. I actually ran into and had a chance to talk with one of the lacrosse coaches after the Spamalot show, which was fortuitous. It was a great show, by the way. And he highlighted that he would really appreciate the ability to have practice and or games held on a multi-purpose field. So with the desire from the head coach, I just want to make sure we're not looking past that need or opportunity as we go forward. If we were to go forward with this and not meet that need, it would feel like we were not being holistic in meeting the needs of all of our student athletes.
So I think that Mr. Lewis and myself, our message from operations from this office, is that is a multi-use stadium. It's a multi-use field. So in collaboration with our athletics, are ensuring that we're listening to our coaches, we're listening to our teams, we're trying to.
I think I think what you're hearing and what we're, at least this board member is hearing in the community is not. So the fact that multi-use stadium, there's not a clear, at least in the community, there's not a clear understanding of how you actually get to use the multi-use stadium and how those decisions are being made. So there's definitely a disconnect there. And I don't know how we fix that, but just saying that, oh yeah, other teams can use the field. To Mr. Comfort's point, if, for example, for lacrosse, and I'm not super familiar with lacrosse sport, but if it has different markings, obviously than football does, we don't have the marking, it can't be used. And so if that's going to be an additional cost that the board has to consider, then I think we would consider it if we could actually allow those teams to use a multi-use stadium.
I just jump in real quick, 'cause I would say, as a person that works in this district every day, to hear our board members have coaches and community members come to them, and don't know about Mr. Lovell, but no one's ever come to me and asked me or told me that they are not being able to use a facility. I've not heard that from Mr. Lovell. I haven't heard that from Mr. Harden either. So I think the disconnect for me is that why are people running directly to our school board or having conversations with your coach if you haven't involved anyone to make those decisions from a district? That's difficult.
I want to maybe clarify my conversation in that I was not approached by the lacrosse coach. I went to the lacrosse coach and I saw him because I had heard the noise from the community about the lacrosse team. So I thought,
I will say, I'm speaking directly about you in particular, but this
Okay.
narrative has come up. I was at a booster meeting on Monday. We could have been more clear with Mr. Harden standing there that it is a multi-use facility and all you have to do is ask. You have to make the request to use the facility. And I think if you don't make the request, how do we know
Well, can
that
we have,
someone's supposed to be,
well,
not use
for
it?
Mr. Lewis, to that point, this was 2 meetings ago, we talked about this specific issue. And the response that we got back from the athletic department was kind of this rambling detail about, oh, and if you want to use it, you just have to ask. There has to be more of a systematic approach to scheduling things in a multi-use stadium. So just saying, all you have to do is ask and then you can grant it use. I'm not sure that that is actually happening.
And just to be clear, we do have an organized system for MLS schedules that we use to schedule everything. From an business operations standpoint, we leverage that on our end for outside usage, so community organizations, things like that. High school athletics, that is all organized by the athletic department. The reason that's the case is there's so many moving pieces, so many moving parts in regards to the amount of players, amount of sports, and the flexibility. They have to wait to come to our department to get that done. It would be very difficult. And so there is a system, and they do leverage MLS schedules. They just leverage it internally to be able to. But I don't know if the coaches have to get into that from a standpoint to request it, or if it's just going to Mr. Smith or Mr. McCann or Mr. Harden. So,
I think it's clearly not your school to decide who uses the multi-use. The issue is though that when the sentiment in the community is different than what the intention of the board is, I think is where this board is. I think that a challenge, I don't know who, whether it's the high school principal, whether it's the athletic director, whether it's Mr. Lovell or Mr. Lewis, to talk to the coaches and find out what the needs truly are, because there is a disconnect somewhere. There's a disconnect on what the community is hearing versus what you're hearing from the athletic department, And I think that's what needs to be looked at, because it truly is a multi-use stadium. It has been called a multi-use stadium since the board committed the $2.5 million back in 2019 to do that. So that's where I think.
And I would like to. The community also really, supported the bond levy. And it is a whole group, it's a whole community endeavor. And so many families have had the understanding that this would be used by multiple sports, multiple events, that it would be, the whole team, the whole group, the whole community would have this. And so they all pitched in. And I think I can understand, and I'm getting the same feedback that every other board member is getting. And I think there could just be a communication delay. There could be some issue in that, but this is what's expected. The community one is all in if everyone gets to use that stadium. And if everyone doesn't get to use that stadium, the community's not going to be all in. I think it's a natural consequence of the feeling that the community has.
I'm gonna agree with what Mr. Ballard and Mrs. Bitterseven. I want to add one other element to that is I'm 100% agreeing that this board does not need to be involved with the operational execution of the fields. However, if the field does not have the lines on it or the goals to run other sports, if the optics on it and the scheduling of it are compromised, and those aren't just a scheduling issue, there's an investment that's needed to make the field usable by other sports. And I think that's where it comes into question with the field house. The scarce dollars that we have privately raised, where are they best leverage to support all the student athletes, I think is the question at hand. If we spend every penny that we have for the shell of the field house, and at the same time, we don't have the multi-purpose field available technically to be used in a multi-purpose way, we have a real, I think, concern.
I have a general question for Mr. Weber about. Question. Can you explain how districts would typically fund, sports athletic fields or field houses or locker rooms, how we're doing it, with, I know we had our bond already and committed 2.5 million to athletics, and so that was it, and that was in 2019. But here we are, with 2023, and we need to reach this goal. We really do. I think as a community, we want to have this completed project. At least I will speak for myself. I would like to see this completed and as quickly and efficiently and as economically as possible. So how do typically districts do this? How do they typically fund it? Do they raise private funds? Does the district say, you know what, we're going to pay half, we're going to raise half? Like, how is that usually done in this day and age?
I think that what we're doing is probably a fairly common approach. Because what we did do with the bond issue is we did indicate that it was going to be used for the district, that there are other districts that would be looking at any types of facilities. I think we pass a bond issue, part of it is just clarity around what you're going to get for those funds. I think that's a key issue whenever you're looking at any kind of referendum. So I think that is a key part of that. Another opportunity that district might be on a bond issue would be if they have like a permanent improvement levy that is something that we don't have, but that we have instead set aside part of our cash reserves. So that would be another potential funding source. Capital improvement budget is kind of just for all of your facilities. We've seen that over the years. Utilize those monies for other athletics, tennis courts, big one. In the past, some of our turf replacement has been part of that, so that would be another source. I think that more and more private funding is being utilized because communities don't necessarily they want to support education. They have to think a little bit about how athletic facilities are funded. I think one of the things that the district will need to pursue once we kind of get through the heat of all the facilities construction is looking at more corporate sponsorship and advertising dollars. I think that's another source that we haven't yet really tapped into. I think probably athletic
Is it typical for your athletic director to be a fundraiser? Is that, I mean, who typically raises this? That's a pretty big job to raise that money. Who is the fundraiser for that? Those private funds nowadays.
I think it depends on the strength of the personnel. I mean, I think that anything like that is kind of outside of the norm for what school would do, which is going out and fundraising, probably depending on the skills of your staff and whether you have the ability to have someone on your team that can fulfill that role.
Maybe if I could add, because our Sycamore advisory commission is studying on foundations for 2 years.
Right.
And most of the parochial schools and many of the public schools have a foundation structure, just like universities do. Like universities, they have professionals that go out to they're skilled at making the connections and networking with alumni.
Yeah.
And not just the community, but also alumni.
Yeah.
And that structure allows for more flexibility to have funds available to make decisions versus always kind of being hand to mouth, which seem to be caught in that, I'll say, scenario right now.
And I just feel like it doesn't, to me, it just seems like we have, professional educators, the jobs are to run the school district, and athletics, we work on the district, but it doesn't, I'm a relatively new school board member, but to me, it seems like a really big ask to say, do your job and raise $1 million for a new field house. that to me doesn't seem like a job description. And I just want to make sure we're setting people up for success. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that is what or operations directors. I don't know, but that's why I'm asking you, because I want to understand the way this works. And I know that's not what anyone here is suggesting. I'm just trying to understand. Clearly we have something we want to make this whole, and we want to solve this issue and get all of our facilities built. And the question would be, as a board, we have to ask ourselves, how do we support Mr. Lewis, and Mr. Lovell and the rest of the district and to do this? And that's what I think we need to be able to talk about as a board.
From a bigger picture, from a board perspective, my concern is the support for the operating levy that will be coming in the future.
Right, that too.
And that's the overriding, I think, interest from the board level. Is this becoming polarizing in the community? When we did our focus groups in 2019, we had not a strong appetite for public funds for athletic facilities. And so we've been running on the paradigm that we need to have private funding sources for our athletic fields. And I just think it's important to say that if we have the viewpoint of our taxpayers, we need to make sure that's in mind as we go forward, because my biggest concern on all of this, while I want excellent athletic facilities for all of our student athletes, I think everyone would desire that. I also don't want to go back to the community for an operating levy and have a scenario where we have disenfranchised or frustrated a high percentage of the community with what we have done and put at risk our operating levy. And I think that is the higher order thing that this group is chartered to balance.
Let me wrap up on this, like, this conversation is great. We hear the message, we need to make sure that the multi-use safe, multi-use, and we will ensure there's a plan going forward to make ease of access so that the parents, like, I think that's the end product. I don't know that we need any additional direction. I think we can move forward with what we've heard and be able to make this
The only,
priority. So,
the only thing I need is approval to buy the block.
Well,
That's my thing, like, I gotta be-
To Mr. Brooks' point, about looking forward and taking a higher view of what the board is gonna be facing or deciding when we're gonna put an operating levy in the ballot. If I understand correctly, from the Sycamore Athletic Booster Association letter of making a pledge of $500,000, which extends from, year 2026 through, to 2035, which is quite a long period of time. Mrs. Weber, can you explain how, for the benefit of the board, but for also the benefit of the community, can you explain how the finances of that work are not going to have that money in hand tomorrow to proceed with that? Where does the money come from? How does that affect the operating budget or the cash reserve of the district? We would be utilizing our cash reserve until those funds. Looking forward, I think we have adequate cash reserve to be able to cover that. Look at it as sort of like we're providing a loan to the district that they're gonna pay off over time, just taking a look from our cash reserve, opposed to going to a bank. To bond. We've done that type of thing too.
But in your opinion, this does not affect timing of operation. This does not bring the cash reserves to a point of concern or below where the board is traditionally typically held.
Yes, I wonder a little bit too about if this sets a precedent for all the other athletic facilities or, areas that we want to improve. And I'm just wondering how Mr. Lovell, what else is left? I mean, I guess one of the questions is, do we have a list of what else is left to do and how much that's going to be? Because I'm not a big fan of our cash reserves being used as a bank, so to speak, for all these commitments. Because while I believe, the Sycamore Athletic Booster Association has been a wonderful organization that has supported Sycamore athletes, for years. And I have no doubt that, that their commitment is made in good faith. But the reality too is we don't know in 5 years what that association is going to look like. And I guess I'm just wondering, do we have a kind of high level number of what else is left to do in the, athletic facilities for the district? Because I feel like we're going to be having this conversation over and over and over.
What's on the kind of bigger plan of the entire kind of facility up there, taking turf out of it, right? Just replacement turf. You've got the finish of the field house, phase 2. You've got the visitor field house, which is part of that original kind of master plan out there. We're tackling the tennis courts. That's part of our capital PI that we've already brought to you, so that's happening. From an athletic standpoint, that's all that's on my radar.
Baseball.
Oh, baseball. Baseball.
But I think to your point, this is kind of the last, what I consider main projects that are, I don't want to say urgent or priority, but the natatorium project is obviously nearing, that major move to heading towards completion. We're in demos, but I don't think there's another project. I'm not interested in bringing you another project that's not fully funded, to be quite honest with you. You guys talk about the team. Our team is fatigued with trying to figure out creative ways to make these projects happen, to deal with the narrative from the community, but also the reality of what we face inside of the district. And this is better. I appreciate your point. I didn't go to school to be a fundraiser. I'm doing the best that I can, and I know our team is doing the best we can, and so is the board. We're all. I look forward to a summer of not having to deal with always an aviator fundraising, unless I have time to go out and meet with corporate sponsors, because it has been difficult. It has been a very difficult process to try to get funds. This commitment from the boosters was really a conversation with the boosters leadership to say, we're not going to have a locker room facility again at the stadium. We're going to be utilizing tents. We're going to be asking the board to pay over $50,000 for the season for tents. Because that's what it costs to rent tents for a season. So we would have had to come back to you with a $50,000 ask each year until this shell was built. So it's kind of the balance of, if the boosters are willing to make the commitment of $50,000 a year for 10 years to be able to get us across the goal line, I will tell you, their donation is contingent upon it moving forward and being completed before the season. If it doesn't happen, they're withdrawing their donation.
I think it doesn't happen because the board doesn't vote for it, but if the board approves this, if you need construction delay occurs.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very clear.
All they want to see is that, I think what Mr. Lovell said is needs the authority to buy the law. And that's, we have the money in the bank to be able to, and we've talked about this, I feel like that previous meeting. Because we have the money in the bank, I don't think any of you were upset about buying the block, because it puts us in a good, whether we move forward right now or not, it puts us in a good position with matching the block and making sure we have what we need, we have the ability to proceed. But from a standpoint of when you would need to actually vote on something is when Mr. Lovell brings you an EMP that says, here is the final price. You would anticipate that.
How much is the block that you were trying to secure?
I want to say it was around $35,000 to $40,000.
My concern also is we don't have any funding set up right now for the interior, so are we gonna get to 2035 and say, hey, guess what, we need now $600,000 to $700,000 for the interior 12 years from now. So, that's like the kids are in kindergarten right now, when they're 12th grade, they'll have, an interior of field house.
So again, and that goes, I think, like, that's the point, it goes to like managing the expectations of the community. Because, you know, just because you see like the exterior of a wheelhouse, you don't expect that the inside is not gonna be done.
We will have to do a lot of it, just in, I'll say in recent weeks of realizing people don't watch the meetings. People don't watch the content that we put out. Because, I mean, if they did, they would have all of this information, so we'll have to think about intentional deliberate ways, you know, and honestly, I look at it as Mr. Datillo, we'll get in front of your football parents and we will go over all this. Lacrosse parents, we'll get in front of you and go over all this, because the other thing we told the boosters, this is not a locker room for football. Baseball and softball are going to use it in the spring. It's right next to their field, so it's a great place for them to get dressed. Right now, they're getting dressed in restaurants. So to have, again, multi-use facility that's larger that kids can go and get dressed in will be helpful to all those different students that are using the facility. And I think to get back to the other pieces, we will certainly, I have an email scheduled to go to them on Monday with Mr. Lovell, Mr. Foster, and Mr. Harden. Effective immediately, get those prices for lining that field, whether it be permanent or temporary for lacrosse lines. If that is a big source of contention out there, we don't want it. We don't need it to be a source of contention. We want to fix that problem. Let's make that a non-issue and move forward as a community instead of standing in our cul-de-sacs and complaining about something that's really all we needed to know was it was an issue. We'll get it rectified.
And one more concern that I've heard out in the community is there needs to be a equal number of women's sports and men's sports. So, that's
I do think what are you asking? I just need some sort of Brad, go ahead and put in the clock. That's about 2 weeks behind where we should have had an order. And the only reason I say that is that that's the item with the largest lead time. And there's going to be delay in construction of this until we.
So Mr. Lovell, not to throw another
Sure.
wrench into all of this, but I understand ordering the block, I've been through that whole thing, so personally, so I get all of that. But you also talked about having a visitors field house, for lack of a better word. Are we going to block for that, or are we just to decide that that block's going to be?
We might have to. Because that is on the south side of the complex, so it's removed from being right next to the concession stand. I think, again, the boosters supported the entranceway and the concession that all matches, and then having the building right next to it, having that all just matches. I'm not on the block.
Mr. Lawler, if the board were to say.
I do want to mention too, because I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. When we're talking about future projects and we ask specifically about the board wrestling projects, things like that, in athletic, absolutely those are it. But there's also conversations about scene shop for the theater. And there's also projects that Beth and I keep track of. We hear ideas out there, we keep track of it on a separate spreadsheet of things that weren't part of the bond that need to be upgraded, that kind of stuff. So I just want to make sure that we don't walk out of here, everybody going, well, you didn't mention in that meeting that that was something we had to wrestle with, because there are going to be things outside of athletics I think we're going to have to wrestle with down the line.
But I think and those, you know, those add-ons like the scene shop for, you know, the drama program, I mean, and that not, you know, try to incorporate those to some degree into our capital plan.
And I think we could, I just think it's a conversation that will need to be had.
But there are people that I think, what Mr. Lovell brings up is there are people that are pushing. And I think we're open to those conversations. It's not that we don't want to do them. Mr. Bitter did it really well. Mr. Lovell's capacity to have more projects going on and starting a theater project or starting this project is pretty limited right now. You know, we'll finish up the junior high, and I think will assist us in being able to have, but he's out there having those conversations with people that I think are ready to donate and do some things for other spaces in athletics. People's passions are different. And we've been at moving all along that is something we're interested in.
I think the challenging thing we talked about was making sure that everyone in the community understands what the bond issue was about and what it's covering. And I think that just going forward, we need to be really clear. I think it's hard when you see, you know, the commitment from the bond issue of $2.5 million for the multi statement. That was always the narrative. That was always it. But when the community sees these things going up, then they start thinking, well, what about the things that are important to me or important to my family, like the tennis court or some other things that, you know, they want to make sure that they are receiving in the district the things that are important to them and their students. And I understand that, so we have to make sure that everyone understands where that is. I would like to, that when you say community, whether it's athletics, arts, any academics, the community should be the whole community. Every family, every student should have the opportunity to utilize those facilities. So the more the community feels like they are included in part of those facilities, the more likely they will donate, will fund, they will volunteer. So this isn't just a sports issue or which sport gets to play where. This is also about students, it's about families and students accessing their public education in their public schools. So the more, the bigger the tent, the more people will be supportive of all things, right? Every single facility that this has should be able to be used by every single family, everyone.
I'll just start, and I'll say I'm okay with spending the $40,000 on the block if we move forward. I'm okay with that. I really, Mr. Lewis, want to take you up on your, what Ned suggested earlier is that we get the multi-use stadium as a priority to address. We don't as a board need to micromanage that. I'm trusting that the district can sort that out, but we are hearing that noise. And your commitment to make that happen is really important to me. So I want to thank you for that. And then I do think we have a lot of outstanding things coming forward that aren't addressed yet. And that includes the phase 2 of the field house, the visitors field house, the softball and the baseball arena, just off the top of my mind. And it also goes to say that there's a lot of great things that are funded, including the auditorium that's moving forward. And so I would like to say that this makes sense, but I think there's a bigger picture issue that we need to address, and that I think we have studied that with our work on the foundation. And I 100% agree with Mrs. Bitter that we shouldn't be asking our athletic directors or our administrators to focus on private fundraising. The committee said we need to pay for athletic facilities with private fundraising. We need to learn from some of the schools that we have studied already on how they have set up for doing that private fundraising. And that fundraising isn't just for athletics. I think your point, this is why so that fundraising on those foundations were set up with a board that's independent of the district that helps allocate where is the need independent, where athletics is an option, but the fine arts is an option as well. And so I really, we've looked at this a couple of times before. My other ask is that we get serious about moving forward with the foundation discussion. I know we're not all on the same page yet, but I think that's the root cause of the situation we find ourselves in. Is when I look at other districts, they see some of the resources that they bring to bear. Upper Arlington, for example, they can leverage the interest from their foundation to fund things like this, let alone having the capital as an example. No reason why we should be in the middle in our district.
I have no problems.
I want to see all of this. Is what I have no problem with this.
I just don't, I don't know if it's right now, but I'm sure that can't afford those safe.
Thank you for that directional thought. I don't think we need to be formal board people on that. We just wanted to make sure that we have a path forward on the.
Come back to the board on the May 17th meeting for a vote on
I do want to acknowledge. Talking about it, but send a thank you to them for again stepping up and essentially they said it really well in their meeting. The groups that fundraise to support student athletes. That's what they do. So they said it really makes sense in our wheelhouse to fund on behalf of the athletic groups to support student athletes. When all students, and all athletes. So I want to make sure that I send a great appreciation and gratitude from all of us too. Because that's a huge commitment. That's a long time, but you can see in their letter the number of things they have already to the district. Not only fund, always enable the original commitment to the field, but the activities and then contributions to the auditorium. I mean, they're really doing the work. I know they appreciate not only working at this level and this team, because they're running now 2 concession stands. They said they're excited about next fall. We get 6 whole football games next year, and then looking at other facilities or other things that we can do over there. One of the things that I did share with them is that we're very open to like a district lacrosse game. Like, why don't we have all levels play? They're playing day girls. All levels play in one day. That way they're there, they're set up. And so I think they were intrigued by some of the ideas. A district soccer day. A horse sports all in one day. So I think they've got some ideas generation going there. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, we only had to know that.
Yeah, because we were on that prior to.
I need a motion to go into executive session for ORC 121 that.
Wait. I would like.
Did that with something?
I just. Because the motion passed that board. Do something else.
I was like, why didn't you do something?
Did you remember the flying?
I didn't really, I remember flying pig, I didn't remember that.
Maybe we tried to wash it.
I can take a picture. Let's